Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Sandeman Street Podcast, a podcast about Dundee and Dundee United from fans of both clubs. I'm Andrew, and joining me this week, as always, is my regular co-host Jack. Jack, how are you this week?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Well, I'm good now that the weekend of football's finished,
Yeah,
but now that we've got to actually talk about it again, I don't know.
well,
But
true.
before we get into that, as always, could you pretty please with a cherry on top, follow our socials. On Twitter, we are at Sandeman ST Pod. That is at Sandeman ST Pod. And on Instagram, we are at the Sandeman Street Pod. At the Sandeman Street Pod. You can also find us on YouTube. If you find us there, give us a subscribe, like our videos, all that jazz. That would be absolutely wonderful. Jack, we'll start with United this week. A pretty underwhelming, pretty poor, verging on embarrassing 3-0 home defeat to Falkirk. And within that, I think there's only really one place to start, and it's with your goalkeeper.
Absolutely amateur goalkeeping, mate. I don't even know, obviously we can start at the second goal, the own goal, which is his third of the season, might I add. I think he's probably on track for 9-10 own goals this season, if things continue the way they're going. For the first goal, he should really catch that ball, mate. It's a grass cutter. I don't think there's enough power on it for him to have to parry it away. He should be able to control that ball, and he doesn't. And Calvin Miller is able to run on the end of it and for an easy tap in. The second goal, the less said about it, the better, really. Comes out to punch it for a corner, and he punches it into his own net instead. Just when you think you've got a chance to maybe get back into a game, you basically hand Falkirk a goal. So 2-0, not great. For the third goal, it's completely amateur goalkeeping, mate. As you know, I was a goalie back in the day. See, if I was in that situation when I was Kucherenko, mate, I would have went right through Brian Graham and got the ball. 90-95% of the time, I'm winning that ball. Kucherenko should be, no questions asked, throw everything on the line to get that ball. It's 50-50 with Brian Graham, who's slower than my nephew, who's 1 year old and can't even walk yet, mate. He's slow as death. It's utterly ridiculous that he gets beat to the ball there. And it's even worse, he doesn't even make an effort to get the ball. Graham literally steps past him like he's a Football Manager goalkeeper. He doesn't even try to stop the ball. He just runs, stops and stands still. And Brian Graham slips past him and taps into the back of the net. It's utter shambles, mate. He's got to get dropped soon because it's not good enough. He's going to end up costing us a position in the Prem, in my opinion, because the way things are going, mate, we are seriously contenders to get relegated. It's just no good enough.
Episode 21, and we've finally had a Jack rant.
Bit time, eh?
Well, I think going by the last point you made there in terms of it'll cost you a place in the league, I think you've got at least 3 teams that are shiter than you, and it'll probably help save you in that regard. Going through all the goals, I did watch the highlights earlier today, and yeah, I mean, the first goal, you could argue that Calvin Miller played for Dundee and he was all left foot. It's a daisy cutter, as you say. You could argue that he could even actually fall on top of the ball. And if he's no falling on top of the ball, at least get the ball wide, put the ball out for a corner, do anything other than what he actually ended up doing. So, yeah, that is a poor bit of goalkeeping. The second goal, I mean, we've seen it before, haven't we? He done that at Easter Road, and then the other own goal he had was the one that was really his fault at Tynecastle. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what you do. And the third goal, the third goal is confidence, isn't it? Because if that's a fully confident goalkeeper, he's cleaning that out, as you say. So he's obviously lacking in confidence. You see him at the end on the highlights. He's crouched over, holding his face. He knows he's had a mare. I've spoken about him before a couple of times now. His shot stopping ability isn't enough now when you're making that many mistakes, and it's not even just mistakes where he's like kicking over the ball and the ball's slicing away, or he's coming out and catching it and dropping it. Every time he makes a mistake, it's a goal.
Yeah, it's you cannot, like you say, mate. His shot stopping ability, he has got it, but the rest of his game doesn't contribute enough to make it worthwhile. Like, he makes these mistakes and they always lead to goals. Look at the goal against St Mirren just the other week. It literally comes down on top of him. Instead of catching it or tipping it over the bar, he punches it in front of himself onto the St Mirren player's head, essentially, and then he scores. It's completely amateur stuff. It's really poor decision making, mate. He's making decisions it's just bonkers to be making it at the level he's playing at, and he's going to cost us more goals, mate, and it's not going to be good enough. He's costing us more in points than he'll be saving us this season, in my opinion, and that's not good enough.
Who's the better goalie, him or the Australian boy?
I mean, it's got to be Kucherenko, because Baraghetti was absolutely hopeless, mate. Couldn't get a game for the Puri, never mind United. So, yeah, mate. Probably Kucherenko in terms of shot stopping ability, but I would say Baraghetti's decision making is probably better.
See, you'll know yourself, having been watching football all your days, and I've seen it Dens a handful of times where the goalie is that low in confidence that he just needs to be dropped. Like, I remember Jack Hamilton went through it, John McCracken went through it last season. There will have been other occasions where it's happened at Dens where the goalie is just that low in confidence that anything he does not work. And you know yourself, as soon as the ball's near him, he's a bag of jaggies. The crowd are all anxious because they think, what's he going to do now? And it's just he just needs to be taken out of the firing line. I mean, your number two goalie is usually an ability goalie. That's why he's your number two. But he's, regardless of the ability of the number two goalie, he has to play, because you need to bring that boy out the firing line. It just needs to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, our number two goal is Dave Richards, who I think in his whole career has played maybe 15 games in adults football. He's barely played any football, mate. But when he did play for us, he looked solid enough. Saying that, he did concede 5 against Inverness the other week, in the B team.
I was speaking of it to a boy at the party we were at on Saturday night, and he was saying, one of our mates, and he was saying that it says that he played in a bounce game at Inverness and he had a bit of a nightmare, but he has to play, in my opinion. You can't let this go on. Like, Jack Hamilton's one of the really big examples for us, because Jack Hamilton, I think if you had Jack Hamilton full of confidence, he'd probably be a no bad goalie, but he just lost all confidence when he played for Dundee, and they ended up bringing in another goalie in January, and he played the rest of the season. But when the managers then got sacked, and we had last game of the season, we were playing St Mirren at Dens, and McPake was taking the game for the last game, and he played Jack Hamilton, and he had an alright first half, and then when it became on top and the pressure mounted in the second half, he threw 3 goals in the net.
Yeah.
And that was him having been out the team for 4 or 5 months. And you could tell that as soon as it came on top, his confidence was that shot. He just crumbled under the pressure. And you need to take him out the team. It's for his own good more than anything.
Yeah, it is. Mate, if it was up to me, right, you drop Kucherenko, you recall the boy Rory Adams at East Fife, and you get him in the net, mate. Because it can't be any worse. Because he's literally thrown away goals He's handing teams goals, and it's just not working. So you might as well stick the 20-year-old goalie in, who's going to improve with experience. He's a Scotland under 21 international, mate. He's clearly got ability. But call him on loan and get him in the net, because you might as well. It literally cannot be any worse.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that they've got to get him out of the team for a period of time, whether that's until after New Year or whatever. They've got to take him out the firing line, let him get his confidence levels back up, throw him into a couple of reserve games, whatever you need to do. He just needs to be taken out of the firing line for a wee while, definitely. But overall, it's been quite a poor run of fixtures for United. They've not had a good record recently at all, have they?
We've won 2 games all season, mate. Once against you lot, and once against Aberdeen, who hadn't scored a goal in about a year. So
the game against us was an absolute stroll in the park today.
Yeah, I know, mate. I honestly didn't know what happened. I think Dundee just never showed up, because we certainly haven't played well since. So
they've no showed up since they left McDermott Park on the last day of last season, Jack. Apart from the absolute fluke against Celtic.
And your draw against Rangers.
Draw against Rangers, yeah. It's not looking good. I mean, how good season for us to choose to start this podcast.
Tell us about it. It's just going to be rant after rant after rant.
But no, it wasn't a very good Saturday. But we'll move on to the Dundee matters. And I mean, you're ranting about United. It's no that much better when it comes to the Dundee side of things. 2-0 defeat away Easter Road against Hibs, and I don't know how to put into words just how unbothered I am right now, and that's purely because of just how much you go into that game on Saturday with zero expectation of getting anything from the match. You don't get anything from the match, and it's no surprise whatsoever. So why are you bothered? Like, I was not bothered in the slightest that we lost that game on Saturday. The first half, just a team full of passengers, just no energy, no fight about them, nothing. The Hibs weren't that great, in all honesty. They weren't great. Didn't create loads and loads of chances. Didn't cut us open at will. But there was one incident in the first half that really summed up that first half for me, and it was Tony Ugan got the ball about 10 yards from the Dundee box and dribbled up the pitch. He got about 10-15 yards further up the pitch and he lost it, and he just gave up. He stood there, and the Ethan Hamilton ran past him to press someone. Ran past him to press the player that he should have been pressing. Second half, they had a couple of really, really good chances. The goalie made a couple of really good saves. I think he made one of them at 1. No, they were both at 2-0. The second save in particular was, I don't know if you've seen the highlights or not. I mean, it's an incredible save, eh?
Great save, mate.
Absolutely incredible save for Clark Robertson's back post effort.
It's pure reflexes.
I know. I mean, it is like a case of just throwing your body in the way and hoping for the best, but at the same time, it's a great save. Great save.
Brilliant save.
There's another incident we'll touch on later, but yeah, I mean, it all comes too late. Hibs are 2-0 up at this point. They score a goal in the second half of Jimmy McGrath. Poor goal to lose. Standing 15, 16 yards for the goal when nobody near him, with a free shot and goal. It's just no good enough. What's your take on it from what you've seen?
Well, I spoke to you at the party at the weekend, and I was telling you, Dundee didn't have a shot on target. Didn't have a single shot. Never mind shot on target. Didn't have a single shot in the first half. It basically says all about how Dundee's game went. I've seen they created a few chances. It's obviously, like you say, too little, too late. You're already 2-0 down at that point, and that's when you decide to come into life. And you need to be on it from the start. and Dundee clearly weren't. I think Hibs had 14 shots the first half. Dundee had 0. Like, it's not good enough for Dundee. Like, you need to, against a team like Hibs, you should do what you done against Rangers and Celtic and sit back, absorb the pressure, and hit them on the counter. And I don't know if that's the game plan you went with, but whatever you did, it didn't work. Like you say, Dundee unfortunate, created a couple of really good chances. Keeper made first save. It's probably a bit more basic than the second one. Second one's, like you say, outstanding, mate. It's pure reflexes, and it should really be a goal. But Dundee never done enough to win the game, and it's shown in the results.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it scored the 2 efforts where the keeper makes the saves, the 2 back post efforts, and they got a 2-all draw out of that game, they wouldn't have deserved it. The comeback fee when Hibs were very, very comfortable, and I mean, we're going through the motions at this point. That's twice I've seen Hibs now, and twice they've never had to get out of first gear. So it is very, very disappointing. Stephen Presley keeps coming out after games. I wish he would just come out and say what he thinks, because he's coming out after games and saying there's progression. I can see progression. Since we beat Celtic, we've played 4 games now, I think. We've conceded something like 12 goals and scored once. How's that progression? We've not scored in 3 games. We've not scored since we were at Falkirk. Now, this is what really angered me about that Falkirk game, was that penalty that we should have had, and Willie Collum comes out weeks later and on his fancy show that's all edited and everything, and he says that we should have had a penalty and blah blah blah. It means he's apologised to Dundee. It means nothing, eh? Like, if we'd won that match at Falkirk, we would have went 3rd in the league. We are now 11th, a point off bottom of the league, right? I've not won a game since we were there, and Falkirk have won near enough every game since, and they're miles ahead of us now. So, I'm not saying for a second that Falkirk wouldn't have lost that game, went on to have the run that they've had, but you never know in football. We would have had at least 3 points, and they would have had none. They had 3 points, we got none. So, the season's been... I'm not wanting to blame that on Dundee's season, because Dundee haven't been good enough, and that's the reason why they are where they are. But they desperately need January, and I say that with a bit of a caveat, because when Dundee need January, they always make an arse of it. They never ever go into January and sign the players or player that they need.
It's very hard to strengthen in January.
It's a very hard window, yeah. Now, what I would rather they did was, I'd rather they went in and they signed 2 or 3 rather than 6 or 7, because every time Dundee do that in January, they never ever ever get them right. Whereas if they add 1 or 2 or 3, but they're improving what they've already got, I would rather they just went with that. I think that would put them in far better position.
The problem you have there, though, is that you're probably going to have less likely striker rate than you are if you sign 6 or 7 boys, because statistically, let's say you get 50% right all the time, right? 50% of your signings are good, 50% of your signings are shit. If you sign 6 boys, 3 of them are going to be decent enough to get in the team. If you sign 3 boys, maybe 1, maybe possibly 2 are going to be good enough to get in the team. So you might as well sign more players and hope that you get the better strike rate.
It's a tricky one, but historically Dundee have always been pish in January, and their recruitment has been pish for years, so it's one of the ones where I'm not sure what to think. But yeah, before we touch on what I was wanting to touch on, we'll quickly go through the score predicting for the last weekend. So for United, I went 3-1 United and Jack went 1-0. How drastically wrong we were when it finished 3-0 for the Falkirk, so 0 points all round for the two of us. But as for Hibs, I went 2-0. No, I went 3-0 and Jack went 2-0. The correct score was 2-0, so we've got the first correct score of the challenge.
Let's go!
Going on from the weekend there, I now sit on 4 points, Jack sits on 5 points. Now, since we're touching on that Hibs game, we're going to bring Ref Watch back for a couple of incidents from the weekend. So we'll start off with the incident at Easter Road. Now, Dundee had a penalty shout about 5-10 minutes into the second half, and it wasn't shown on Sports Scene, and I don't think it was shown on the YouTube highlights either. Now, thankfully, somebody on Twitter had put it on, so I was able to show Jack what happened, and I just think it's a complete and utter disgrace from the officials in Scotland that wasn't given. Now, when we played Rangers at Ibrox, like Jack touched on 5-10 minutes ago, we were on for our first win there in 20 odd year. Our first win of the season, blah blah blah. The boy Gassama nips into the box in front of Dre Wright and falls to the ground under pressure of Dre Wright. Now, in my opinion, it was never a penalty in a million years, but Rangers give it. However many weeks later, Willie Collum goes on to his VAR show and he tells us that it is a penalty, there's no grounds to overrule the penalty decision from VAR, and he said something along the lines of that it was Dre Wright or the defender's responsibility not to foul the player and not to make contact with the player running on goal. So effectively what referees are expecting defenders to do is to stop running, stand still, and let the boy do what he likes inside the box. Right? Now, fast forward on to Saturday, Tony Ugan nips past Rocky Bashiri on the Dundee left, Hibs right. He nips past him and outpaces him into the box. Rocky Bashiri does exactly the same thing as what Dre Wright did. Probably more contact was made. Tony Ugan goes down. Rocky Bashiri falls on top of him. Penalty, you would imagine, considering Willie Collum reckons it was. No. Yellow card for diving. So that solidifies what everybody always thought, that if you didn't wear royal blue, red and white, or you didn't wear green and white hoops, you get fuck all in Scotland.
Yeah, it's basically as a carbon copy of the Rangers penalty. And as you say, if Willie Collum's coming on and saying that it should be a penalty because of it's the defender's prerogative not to make contact with the attacker, then it should be a penalty for Dundee. It's obviously it doesn't look like there's a lot of contact, but there is contact, and you can see the way the Dundee player throws his body. It could potentially look like a dive from the ref's perspective. I understand that, but if you're following the rules of the game, it's a penalty. So it is unfortunate for Dundee because that could have been a penalty goal and then your 2 goals at the end and you could have won that game.
See, the thing is, Jack, is I, in the grand scheme of things, don't actually think it was a penalty. I think that he's nipped in front of him and he's played it basically. He knows his goal side, he knows he's in the box, and he's not initiated the contact as much as Gassama, because Gassama threw his legs behind him and then fell to the ground, but he's effectively just fallen over, and Rocky Bashiri's fallen on top of him because his momentum's taking him over him, right? That's not what's annoyed me, because if that at the beginning of the season hadn't have happened, I'd have been like, you know what, fair play to the ref, he's shown a bit of balls there, right? Obviously, you would still be screaming for it at the match. What's pissed me off is that we went to Ibrox, how teams like Dundee never win at Ibrox, and you get that ripped away for you because a boy dived in the box, and we were told all the time that the Old Firm are in the favour. The fucking are, and that's proof of it. I mean, it's an absolute stonewall penalty, carbon copy of it,
Yeah, it's carbon copy.
If Willie Collum's standing there, and I know that it was 2 different referees that refereed the 2 different games, but if Willie Collum, who is their gaffer, is standing there saying that's a penalty, then every single incident that happens like that should be a penalty.
Yeah.
But it's not, because Dundee are the wee team and Hibs are the big team.
Yeah, and Rangers are the big team.
It's an absolute nonsense, honestly. I'm sick of it. One of the things that we were speaking about, I think I touched on this last week, I was saying before that, obviously the Scotland game was so good and everything, before we were in the pub, and we're speaking about how kind of disillusioned is probably the right word I am with football. You know what? So much of it's got to do with the refs and the rules of football, and how rather than addressing problems within football, they do stupid things like that new thing that the goalies are only allowed to hold the ball for so long, and they change everything but the actual things that would sort the problem.
Mm.
And I'm just beginning to get awfully sick of it. Like that if we'd got that penalty, and obviously we still have to score it, but we got a great chance with that penalty. That's 1-1. It was at 1-0 when it happened. No long later, Martin Boyle goes into the box at the other end, minutes later, and goes down, doesn't get booked.
Mm.
Doesn't give a penalty either, doesn't book him. So, there you go. But Stephen McLean's forever had it in for Dundee. I mean, his record for things that he's never given Dundee is nothing short of amazing. Like, give penalties against Dundee as much as he can, but never gives Dundee anything. And if you think back to when we beat Livingston and we were 2-0 up and it went to 2-2 and we got a penalty the last kick of the ball, and it was for the boy Danny Wilson challenging Charlie Riley, and it went to VAR and the referee went over and stuck with his decision because it was a fucking stone water. Guess who was on VAR and advised him to go to the screen that day?
Who?
Stephen McLean. What an absolute shocker. But before I explode in rage, we'll move on to the other thing that we wanted to talk about, and that was the penalty that Livy felt they should have had Ibrox. What's your thoughts on that one?
Based on our conversations in previous podcasts, and we've said it a few times, or I've said what I think my interpretation of the rule should be, is do the team that handled the ball gain an unfair advantage from the hand hitting the ball? In this situation, the ball's moving towards the Rangers' net. Okay, Jack Butland is there, but Jack Butland is dropping to the floor. It's potentially going in the back of the net, and so Rangers have gained an advantage from the ball hitting the player's hand, and it may not seem like an unnatural position, but it's still, Rangers have still gained an advantage from it, and so it should be a penalty. I don't think there's any questions about it, really. He stops the ball going towards the net with his hand. It doesn't matter where your hand is. It's still a penalty, clearly.
Well, it hits him on the arm, below the sleeve line, 6 yards out, and it's preventing the ball going towards the net. Whether it goes in the net or not is irrelevant. It's preventing the ball from heading in the direction of the goal. The ball is going on target, and it's preventing that from ending up as a goal. It's a penalty all day long.
Totally agree, mate.
And I'm coming from a position where I didn't really want Livingston to get it, because I'm happy with Livingston getting beat every week.
Yeah, true. But when you see stuff like that, mate, you can't help but feel aggrieved for the team that's not been given for, because it's clearly a penalty, mate.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with you. As I say, as much as we didn't want Livingston to get it, you need to look at these as being as unbiased as you can be, and it's a penalty all day long, in my opinion. He stops the ball from going towards target with his hand below the sleeve line. His arm isn't like massively out with his silhouette, as they say, but it's still out in a way that he's not standing there with his arms by his side, and it hits him on the arm while his arms are pinned to his body. That would be different, because he's made an attempt to move his hands away from the ball, but his arm is slightly out with his silhouette, and it hits him in the hand. It's a penalty. And you know what, right? As much as I think that the referees in Scotland are garbage, and they are, right, I could half understand when they don't give those sort of things on at the time, because it happens so quickly. They've got to have about 4 or 5 different sets of eyes on their head to see everything that's going on. I can understand why they could miss things, but when you've got VAR looking at things slowed down in slow motion with still images and 4 or 5 different camera angles showing them, how could they not give that?
VAR has to intervene there.
It's got to get away from this. if the referees had a clear and obvious error, it's got to get away from that and just give things that are wrong. If the referee has deemed that isn't a penalty, but it's not, you can see why he's not giving it as a penalty. No, that's a penalty. We're giving it.
Yeah, it should be about making the right decision. It shouldn't be about politics or helping referees' egos or feelings or whatever, or players' feelings or whatever. It should be. Is this a foul? Is it a penalty? Yes. Okay, let's give it. There shouldn't be. The problem is, mate. There's too much scope on what's a penalty and what's not a penalty. It should be clear cut, hard to find. Has this happened? Yes. Penalty. It shouldn't be, has this happened? Yes, but this. And I think there's too much scope in it, and refs have got too much leeway to do things based off of feelings rather than the cold hard facts.
Yeah. One of the ones that, if we're on the topic of refs, because I love nothing more than to slaughter them as much as possible. The referee on Saturday, he wasn't doing the stupid hands in the air counting them from 5. Couldn't have cared less that the Hibs goalie had the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
See, as I've said hundreds of times before and won't get into it at this point in time, with the whole clock stopping and blah blah blah, that rule has been brought in to stop goalies from time wasting. Now, all you had to do was say if the ball's in the goalie's hands, the clock stops. Done. He could have the ball in his hands for half an hour if he wants. He's not gaining any advantage. But they brought it in for the wrong thing. It should be for goal kicks. That's when goalies waste most time. When they're clearing all the non-existent mud that's in their studs by banging them off the posts, and they're walking from one side of the goal to the other, and they're kidding on that they can't see the spare ball next to the goal and waiting for the ball to get thrown for the ball boy. That's when they're wasting most of their time. Nothing to do when they have the ball in their hands. Anyway, we'll go over the rest of the scores from the weekend. So, Dundee United 0, Falkirk 3, Hibs 2, Dundee 0, with the two Dundee team scores, as we've previously discussed. Now, Kilmarnock 1, Motherwell 3, Jack. Kilmarnock are in trouble.
You think?
Oh, mate. I honestly think that them and Livy have got the potential to save us. More so Livy.
Well, it's funny because we've got Killie next, mate, and I think they're going to beat us. So.
Well, we'll speak about that in just a second. The other games were Rangers 2, Livingston 1, and St Mirren 0, Celtic 1. A very, very late thunderbolt strike from Callum McGregor getting 3 points for Celtic. Moving on to Sunday, the only game was Aberdeen 1, Hearts 0. Now, Hearts have done exactly what I thought they would do after they beat Celtic. They've no kicked on.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, and I'm no way criticising Hearts because they've had a great season so far. They've done really well, and I'll credit them. They've done brilliant so far. But in my opinion, the biggest thing that they can do, they went to Ibrox and won when Rangers were really toiling under Russell Martin, but then they've got Celtic at a great time as well, by the way, when Celtic were riddled with injuries, and they still are, I suppose, riddled with injuries. They had loads of key boys missing, and they got their win against Celtic. They played very well and they deserved to win the match, right? So, whatever. But that's not the big thing in my opinion. The big thing is what you do afterwards. You maintain it. Now, I think directly after the Celtic game, they went to Paisley and they drew 2 or 3 all with St Mirren. They then had their nice wee game against us to get their confidence back. They've no won a game since.
Yeah,
they drew with
United.
They had the international break and then they've been beat at Pittodrie. That's where they'll lose the league, in my opinion, because they'll maybe beat Celtic again later in the season, but then they're losing and dropping points in games that Celtic will win.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't think they'll win the league.
No, I don't think so, maybe now, but You never know, mate. You never know. It could just be a wee blip, and then the pick up next week, and then
Yeah,
go
I
on a
mean,
run to end the season.
they've got. I always thought that Celtic would be top of the league by the new year, and I still reckon that that's the case. Like if Celtic win their game in hand, they go a point behind. Their game in hand is against us, I think. So there you go. There's 3 points without them even turning up. They could bring their B team for the Lowland League and they'd beat us. And then they've got to play Hearts at Celtic Park before Christmas. So
Yeah, I mean it's tough.
there's your wins that'll put them top of the league.
True.
Anyway, we'll move on. So as you touched on there, Jack, United are at Kilmarnock on Saturday. Now, I think previously you've described Kilmarnock as a bit of a bogey team.
Yep.
So what are you thinking going into this one?
I'm not going to be surprised if we get beat again, mate. I think that's I'd be making it up, but I think it's maybe something like seven games we've not beat them now, maybe more, to be honest. We just cannot seem to get a result against Kilmarnock, and it's on that plastic pitch, which is absolutely dreadful. So I can honestly see us getting beat by a couple of goals, because if Kucherenko's playing in goal, mate, we all know he's capable of making a mistake. So you can maybe count that as one goal towards Kelly, and then poor defending will give them another one. I'm not confident at all, mate. We're really poor this season so far. I think people have been giving us a bit too much credit. I think we've been mediocre at best, and I think it's a very, very difficult place to go and get a result, despite what you're saying with regards to their season so far. They've beat us twice this season already, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they made it 3.
I know you're saying about how they've beat you twice this season, and obviously the League Cup and then in the league at Paradise, and I know that you're saying that United have only won 2 league games this season as well. If United are as good as what I reckon they can be, then you'd have to think that you could go to Kilmarnock and end that record.
Yeah, mate, but the way things are going, mate, I can't see it.
What's happened to United? It's been very, very under the radar how poor they've been.
Mate, people come up to me in my work, right, and they say, "Oh, United are doing pretty well, eh?" Mate, we're rubbish. People think we're doing great because of what we've done in Europe, but we've got to put out by right. We beat a team in Luxembourg by 2 goals on aggregate, and then we drew with Rapid Vienna. And people are thinking we've had a great season, mate. We've been poor. Really poor. But I was wrong earlier. We've won 3 times. We beat St Mirren as well. But apart from that, mate, we have been rubbish. And so we just don't seem to be clicking. Maybe too many different nationalities in the squad or something. But it's just not clicking and it's not working, mate.
I did think at the beginning of the season, and I have spoken about this on the podcast, that I thought United would struggle at the beginning of the season because they had so many boys coming from so many different places, like you've just said, and it'll take the squad a bit of time to gel, get the harmony going, etc., etc. But then they hit the ground running in Europe. I mean, obviously, the team that they played from Luxembourg, they could have turned up and played in Brogues and won that game eventually. They were never going to lose that game. But to go and play so well in Vienna and then so well again at Paradise, you're thinking to yourself, they've obviously signed well, they've recruited well. The players don't. If you recruit well and you sign good players, they don't need nearly as long to gel because they're just good players. Good players can play well with good players, but it's been a very under the radar thing that they've only. They get beat for Kilmarnock at Paradise, but they go and get a draw at Tynecastle, and I think that's kind of the reason why it's been so under the radar, because they're picking up decent results that, like, they're getting beat for Kilmarnock at Paradise. They're losing 3-0 at Falkirk, but they'll go to Easter Road and get a draw. It's hard pushes they go. They're proving that they are a decent team.
It's a lot. I think it's a mentality problem, mate. Because if you look at the teams we've got results against, we've drew against Rapid Vienna twice. Good team. I think did we draw against Rangers? Well, we've played against Rangers. I don't think we lost that, but I could be wrong. But the teams we've lost against, mate, we've lost against Killie. I think did we lose to Livy? We might have lost against Livy. We lost to Falkirk. We drew with Falkirk. We're probably going to get beat by Killie again, mate. We lost to Motherwell. It's just no good enough, mate. It really, it's a complete mentality problem. We play well against Hearts. We'll get a draw against them. We'll draw against Hibs. Play well against them, mate. It's a complete lack in the ability to get motivated for the lesser teams, mate. And that could be a problem with Jim Goodwin, because he should be getting the players up for it, and he's not. And that's how we're coming up against these teams who we should be beating, and they're doing us over, mate. They're turning us over. And it's really not it is a mentality problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough one. I think the players are there though, Jack. Whether it's a mentality thing like you say, or the manager's not able to get them playing the way that these players should play, or maybe they're just not as good as we think they are. I don't know what it is.
Maybe, but it's a lot easier to get motivated when you're coming up against like in a stadium with 20,000 fans than it is against Killie or Motherwell on a Friday night. You know what I mean, mate? It's it's so much harder to get motivated for them games.
You only have to look at your rivals up the street who motivate themselves when they're live on the telly playing against the champions and have not been able to win a game since.
But yeah, true.
The other game this weekend is Dundee are back at Dens. It feels like we've hardly played Dens all season, but we're playing St Mirren. Always a tricky game against my favourite man in the world, Stephen Robinson. Don't know about how to feel about this. Played them earlier in the season, and it was probably the worst game I've seen this season. And there's been a few. They won 1-0, but I felt like in most part we nullified them and dealt with what they had to offer. So getting them back at Dens, I feel like you never know. We're going to hate to put an end to this record that we've got, and no better place to start than at home. What do you reckon?
It's a tough game, mate. I mean, I think St Mirren they've won twice all season, I think. So it's difficult because, as you say, they are a good team, mate. They've got like physical players. They've got Stephen Robinson in charge, who is your favourite man on planet Earth, and it's a hard game. I think with St Mirren coming off the back of that defeat against Celtic, I don't know if that will drop their heads maybe, because they're like, oh, done so well, and then to concede in the 90-odd minute, it's going to be heart-wrenching for them. It could also motivate them to go, right, okay, we've held Celtic for 90 or plus minutes. Let's keep this Dundee team doing.
Yep.
Because you're there for the taking, mate. You are there for the taking, and so it's a hard one to call. You've just got to see how both teams turn up on the day, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know what to think about it. I think we've got the capability of beating them. They've got the capability of beating us. We've got the tools to hurt them. They've got the tools to hurt us. And if we beat them, we go above them, by the way. So there really isn't as big a gap in terms of their quality to ours as that I think there is, or other people think there is. I think they're maybe on 10 or 11 points, we're on 9. So beat them, you go above them. The motivation's to climb the table. But we will put the score predictions in now, Jack. So we talked about Kilmarnock against United first. I actually have my predictions down already, but if you pick what I've picked, then I'll change mine.
Right, okay.
Kilmarnock against United, what are you thinking?
Based off current form, mate, I'm going to go 2-0 Killie.
Okay, well I've went 2-1 United.
Okay.
I'd almost write yours down. Okay, And the Dundee against St Mirren game, I have went for 2-2. What do you
I
think?
think that's quite a good scoreline. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 1-0 St Mirren.
1-0 St Mirren. Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like Dundee have got a leakier defence than St Mirren. So.
Okay, it was a fixture with plenty of goals in it last season, and this season, well, there was only the one, but it was a 1-0 win for St Mirren, so if history repeats itself, you will be another 2 points on the board. But I'll get them added to our spreadsheet. Well, we were speaking earlier about this, I would have put the results from last week on screen. You'll have seen the points. Jack's now leading the way. I think it's 5 points to 4. Yeah, he is. So that takes us on nicely to the other challenge of the podcast, which is the Futbology challenge. Now, I'm surprised this hasn't happened before now, but this is the first week where we've got a situation where one of the players was at a game, doesn't support either team, but will draw points from it. Now, the reason why Jack was at this game was because he was actually with myself. It was a Dundee game, and it was at Easter Road against Hibs. We were having a night out in Edinburgh after the match, hence why he was with me in Edinburgh for an away game. So the scores and the league table are on screen now. I had a game from 2007, a 1-0 win for Dundee, so 3 points on the board. The Dundee Hibs game at Easter Road that Jack attended was 2-2. As you'll see, the score is in green because although he was sitting in the Dundee end, I'm outing him for that, he was supporting Hibs. So there's an extra point for Jack. He would have had a point either way, to be fair.
Yeah.
And a forfeit week for our league leader Martin. So he stays on 19 points. Jack moves up to 12 and I move up to 11. So closing the gap slightly on Martin. He's leading the way by 7 points and he's 8 points ahead of me. I think it's going to be a bit of a tall order to catch him, but we'll try our best. So we'll go through the games though from the archive. Mine was from the November the 24th, 2007, a 1-0 win against Hamilton. The crowd was 4,375. The managers Alex Ray and Billy Reid. Dundee starting 11, Craig Sampson, David Worrell, Gary McKenzie, Milan Palinic, Eddie Malone, Paul McHale, Scott Robertson, Kevin McDonald, Gavin Swankie, Derek Lyle and Bob Davidson. And on the bench, Ludovic Roy, Freddie Daquin, Paul Dixon, Yanni Stum and Jan Zemelik. For Hamilton, they're starting 11, Bryn Halliwell, David Elibert, Chris Swales, Mark McLaughlin, Brian Easton, Alex Neil, James MacArthur, James McCarthy, Mark Gilhaney, Richard Offyoung and Roman Wallner. And on the bench, Thomas Cherney, James Gibson, David Winters, Brian Wake and Stuart Taylor. Now, this was a big game as far as I could remember because this was the season where Dundee and Hamilton went toe-to-toe for the league. And pretty much in any other season, if Dundee finished with the points tally that they finished with that season, they would have got promoted. But Hamilton were better than us that season and won the league at a canter in the end. I think they won the league by about 8 or 9 points. So they had a very good team that season. The goal scorer was Scott Robertson on 12 minutes, so we did get the better of them on that occasion. Moving on to when Jack was in the Derry Rumba, a game from the 24th of November 2018. Dundee with a 2-2 draw at Easter Road. The the attendance was 16,190. The managers were Neil Lennon and Jim McIntyre. The teams that day for Hibs were Adam Bogdan, Paul Hanlon, Mark Milligan, Lewis Stevenson, F.A. Ambrose, Ryan Porteous, Darryl Horgan, Stevie Mallon, Jamie McLaren, Martin Boyle and Florian Cambere. And on the bench, Ophir Marciano, Marvin Bartley, Jamie Gullen, Thomas Agapong, Stephen Whittaker, Sean Mackey and Vikintas Slivka. For Dundee, Jack Hamilton, Cammy Kerr, Cedric Kishinga, Calvin Miller, Dan O'Dea, Nathan Ralph, Jesse Curran, Glenn Kamara, Paul McGowan, Martin Woods and Kerry Miller. And on the bench, Elliot Parish, Andrew Boyle, Ryan Innes, Jack Lambert, Elton Ngutala, Lewis Spence and Sofiane Musa. The goal scorers were Kasunga OG on 1 minute, Porteous on 30, Kenny Miller on 45 and McGowan on 47 for the draw. Now, I don't know if you remember this, Jack. I'll get your, if you remember anything in a minute. The thing I remember about it was Jack coming out from underneath the stand after the own goal in the first minute was scored, looking up towards me and raising his hands in sheer delight. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to hate to sit next to this guy who everyone now knows isn't here supporting Dundee.
I don't remember that,
to get my head kicked in.
I don't mind that, to be honest. I remember Hibs going 2-0 up and they'd be like, yes, come on, get in there. But like, quietly. And I mind Dundee coming back and winning. Obviously, when Dundee scored, I had to stand up and pretend to celebrate.
I think I dragged you up.
Yeah, I think I just stood up, yeah. And then you scored your second, and then I was kind of gutted, to be honest, but it was an experience, I suppose.
So, as on screen now, and as spoken about earlier, Martin still leads the way, I'm still bottom, but it's getting a wee bit tighter now, and we'll move on to next week, where we will, I think next Monday is the 1st of December, so as you're all opening your advent calendars, we will be doing our next edition of the monthly top 5. Jack's month to pick the subject, so we'll look forward to doing that next week. We'll keep that quiet until the episode. Just before we get going, as always, if you could follow us on our socials, the Twitter page is at SandemanSTPod. That is at SandemanSTPod. The Instagram page is at the Sandeman Street Pod. At the Sandeman Street Pod. You can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, and you can find us on YouTube. If you listen to us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you can. That does us wonders. Share our podcast as much as possible. Tell everyone you know. That would really be appreciated so we can get our listeners up. So, thanks very much for tuning into episode 21 of the Sandeman Street Podcast. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we have got some positivity, some wins, or even a draw to talk about, because other than Scotland recently, it's been awfully depressing. So thanks very much everyone, and have a great weekend. Cheers.